30 seconds. One minute.
Isaac Asimov once said that violence is the refuge of the incompetent. And for me, this quote was actually quite easy to think of a couple examples for, because I myself have found many instances in which I, my friend group, and our society at large has resorted to violence due to a lack of competence in being able to handle issues peacefully and professionally. So today I'll be covering 3 examples in which I, my friends, and society at large use violence in order to hide the fact that they had no idea what they were doing. So firstly, I'll cover an example of me. When I was in 5th grade, I was appointed the treasurer of the K-Kids chapter of my school. And for the most part, I was pretty bad at it. I mean, the only reason I got the position was because I was the only one who applied, so you could imagine what quality work I was putting in. But eventually, Ivan, the director of the program and the president of the club, confronted me about it, saying something along the lines of, "Hey, I feel like sometimes you don't do your job well, and in fact, you're actually pretty bad at it." And of course, instead, I could have decided to address his issues and become a better person, which would help me improve both the chapter and myself with my experience in the job. But instead, I decided to be violent and rude. I started throwing things and yelling insults and trying to hurt him simply because he decided that he wanted to stand up against me and tell me that the work I was putting in was not satisfactory. This isn't the last story that involves Ivan, because in fact, he went down a similar road to me. A couple years later, when we were in 7th grade, we both joined the Students Against Destructive Decisions Club at our school, which helped promote healthy behaviors and discourage students from adopting negative habits such as drug use, alcohol use, and bad school performance. And one day, Ivan and I were discussing one of the big events we were hosting that day at lunch, in order to promote some of the causes that we decided to work on. And our tournament director and our chapter director came up to us and brought up a couple issues that he noticed with us. He claimed that we were incredibly irresponsible. We were always late. We never turned things in on time. We were always hiding things and keeping secrets for no reason other than because we wanted to feel special. And when he confronted us about this, instead of accepting that those were in fact all things we did, we yelled. We accused him of all these terrible things so terrible I don't ever want to say them to anyone ever again. And we quit, instead of accepting the fact that we were no good at our jobs and would have probably been better off quitting earlier anyways. Thirdly, let's talk about an example that most of us will be familiar with, World War I. World War I first started because of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 in Sarajevo, Bosnia. This assassination could have simply been a conflict between Austria-Hungary and the many cultures that existed within it that were seeking independence, but instead, due to alliances and a desire between different European powers to prove that they were the superior ones, to lead into an all-out, violent conflict that lasted for over 4 years, in which over 7 million people lost their lives due to warfare, and many people were so jaded from war that they committed to pacifism for years to come, which ultimately resulted in World War II and in the assassination of millions of Jewish people and other minorities in Europe, because people were so committed to pacifism that they didn't realize that that what led to World War I wasn't necessarily just violence, but the incompetence of many of the leaders of Europe at the time and in the past. So, now that we've seen all of these examples, I think we can all agree with Asimov and realize that violence isn't a display of power or intelligence, but rather a display of incompetence unlike any other.